PC games and stuff. So I just kind of like started thinking around like on the side, like making little just games here and there. Like my first game that I ever made was in this thing called Adventure Game Studio. And then I was like, what am I gonna do? I need to like go to college and get a degree or something. So UW-T had a computer science program, and I was like, programming is pretty fun. I know that like software engineering is like in demand, like this will probably create opportunities for me. So I went to UW-T, got my computer science degree, and like during this time I was kind of just like making games like just for practice. I still didn't think I was going to be a game developer though. And then I graduated from that. I was trying to get jobs, and I was like, I bombed all the interviews, and I was like, man, I need to get better at programming. So I have been dabbling with games. I kind of know how to make games, so I was like, maybe I'll just make a little game as kind of just a practice to get better. That's when I started working on Stardew Valley. So I started with that, and at first I was like, this might take maybe 6 months and I'll be done with it, and then I can put it on my portfolio and get a job. So I started working on it, 6 months went by. I kind of had a game, but it was like, I learned so much in these 6 months, I could do way better than this. So I kind of went back and like redid everything. And then this process went on for 4.5 years, where I was like, learning a bunch about pixel art, about programming, about just how to put all this together into an actual game. And I kept going back and forth and redoing it, and like everyone was like asking me like, well, what are you doing? Like, are you gonna get a job? And I was like really embarrassed about that, but I kept telling people like, nah, it'll be like 6 more months, and then it'll be done. And like I kept doing that. And after 4.5 years, I finally had this game, which I felt pretty proud of. I thought it was pretty good. And I figured, I can release this, and maybe a few people will buy it, like maybe some like hardcore Harvest Moon fans will buy this game. So in 2016, I finally released Stardew Valley, and it kind of blew up. And fast forward now, it's been almost 10 years since 2016. I guess the 9th anniversary of Stardew Valley will be next month. And the game has become very big. It's sold 41 million copies. It's on pretty much every platform, and it's totally changed my life. I'm like a full-time game developer now, or I have been since I started working on Stardew Valley. But that's pretty much my story now. Stardew Valley's been out for a long time. I've been supporting it with additional updates. I have employees now. I have a company, and I'm trying to work on my new game, Haunted Chocolatier, which I've been kind of working on for a while, but I haven't really been able to fully dive into it because I've been working on the Stardew Valley updates. But now that 1.6 is done, I'm trying to focus fully on Haunted Chocolatier until it's finished. So that it'll probably still be a couple years, but I have big ambitions for that game, and I think it's going to be good. So I'm happy to be here. And to talk to all you guys. So like the way I guess we should probably do this is just kind of do like a Q&A. Like I'm happy to answer any questions at all about anything. Yeah, please.
You want that? You want me to take that down?
Oh, this?
Yeah.
I guess I can just move it right here.
So, first of all, I absolutely love your game. It's really my favorite. I've seen all the reviews a lot of them talk about the game development and the art, or not the art, the music, but back to what I was going to say. I never really see much about your art, like your inspiration for the style of Stardew's art, or like any other art forms you may have done.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big influence was probably just the games that I played as a kid. So like I said that I, first started with like Super Nintendo, which is like all pixel art. So that was kind of like the most, I guess, nostalgic, kind of like formative thing that I played. So I think Stardew Valley was kind of just like me trying in a very amateur way to like recreate that style. I didn't really have any like, I didn't have any training with pixel art or anything. I really just dove into it, tried it out, and like my early pixel art would like look like garbage. And then over time, I kind of got better and better at it and just learned things like through experience. But in terms of like art beyond like video game art, I don't know if there's any like per se like any particular influence, although I do appreciate like fine arts. And I guess one thing in general I will say about game development is like I think it's good to not just be influenced by games, but to like look at all kinds of things, art, movies. Like I actually get a lot of ideas from movies. Like I think it's actually better to get ideas that are like not from video games because you might create something more unique and interesting that way. Just out of curiosity, how many people here like want to be a game developer? Okay, okay, very cool. All right, any other questions?
Going to your newer game that you're working on, what is there like any inspiration behind it, or did you just kind of create it?
It's actually not really inspired by anything in particular. It was kind of just that like, so I made Stardew Valley, and then I was thinking about what do I want to make next? I actually first started working on like a traditional RPG, like a turn-based, or actually it was like a strategy RPG, like a tactical RPG. And I was like, I don't know. It ended up being like too ambitious of a project, so I kind of stopped working on that. And then with Haunted Chocolatier, I was kind of like, I have all these Stardew Valley fans, like they're probably expecting something kind of similar to Stardew Valley, and like I don't want to disappoint the fans by doing something like radically different. So I was like thinking, but I don't want to make another farming game. I want to do something a bit different. So this idea of like kind of running a shop and Haunted Chocolatier is a lot more about like adventure, exploration. It's like there's more like combat in the game than in Stardew Valley. I kind of wanted to challenge myself because the combat in Stardew Valley is not very good, in my opinion. So like I wanted to challenge myself to like improve on that and do a lot better. That was kind of my thinking with Haunted Chocolatier, and also like Stardew Valley is about like farming, which is a very like basic and like essential activity that people do. Haunted Chocolatier is about like making chocolates and candies, which is more of like it's like a high level, like luxurious thing that people do. And so it's kind of like focusing on a different area of like the human experience, I would say. I guess one game that maybe you would say is maybe a slight influence is called Recettear. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it. Yeah, okay, there we go. But yeah, it was like a PlayStation 1, I think, era shopkeeping RPG. Sorry, can you repeat that? The bell again.
What's your opinion on triple A platform games, like more like Fallout 4 or
AAA. I mean, I think AAA is like fine. I mean, I'm not like against it or anything. I mean, it's like, obviously, like I'm like an indie developer, and I tend to mostly play indie games, I would say. But it's like it makes sense to me that there would be all various levels of, I guess production level. Typically, I would say that I feel like when you have AAA games, it can sometimes, I mean, there's some great games, but oftentimes there's this like idea of like too many cooks spoil the soup, So it's like with the thing, yeah, what was it? Right. It's more, at that point it's more like a business, and it's like I kind of, for me, video games are more like an art, and I want to like enjoy it, and I want to like see the creator's like heart and soul in the game. And it's like when your motive is profit, I think it can like get in the way of that a little bit. Yeah, of course. No, right here in the front.
Okay, sorry. Now that you've developed multiple games and are working on developing new ones, especially with some where you're building your own distinct game engine, how has building your own game engine allowed you to work better on those games?
I would say that making my own engine from scratch, like rather than using like Unity or GameMaker or something, I mean, I don't regret it. It was a lot of work and there's a lot of issues as a result of that. But it's ultimately allowed many things like for Stardew Valley, it made the game very moddable for one, which is a huge, there's a huge modding scene for Stardew Valley, which I think has been of great benefit to the game. It's also like whenever there's an issue, it's always fixable. It's like, I don't have to be fighting against this like framework that is alien to me and I don't even necessarily have access to it. I can go in the code and make any change whatsoever, which like in the long run, that's been very helpful. But the problem is like, it took a long time to get it all working and there's always like bugs and issues. It's complicated, but like, it was also, for Haunted Chocolatier, I'm writing the engine from scratch as well, because it's just kind of like what I know. I kind of enjoy it in a way, like you're building everything from the ground up, every nook and cranny of the code base. And you have complete control. It's like when I've dabbled with Unity, Game Maker, stuff like that, and those are great, and like you can very quickly get something up and running with those kind of tools. But it's kind of like, I'm very particular about certain things. It's like, I want the sword swing to be just this precise way. And it's like, with the code, it's like very like immediate. Like I'm like, okay, I can go in here and tweak this value right here and I know exactly what it's gonna do. But it's like, I think part of it is like, I'm a solo developer. I mean, with Stardew Valley, it has evolved over time. I have other people helping me now, but like when I first made the game, I was completely solo. And on Chocolatier, I'm totally solo. So it's like, the entire code base is like in my head. Like I know like every little line, and it's like when you're doing it that way, it's a very like freeing, like immediate sort of way of taking your ideas and making them real.
When you were like making Stardew Valley, I know it was like influenced by Harvest Moon. What things from Harvest Moon did you want to change while making Stardew Valley?
Well, one thing was, if you go back and play like the original Harvest Moon or like the first couple of games, the just managing your inventory is like such a nightmare. Like, cause it's this old fashioned like approach, and games have like evolved a lot. Like just basically game design has evolved. Like with games like Minecraft and like all these things where you have like a inventory, you have a toolbar and like all that stuff. None of that was with the original Harvest Moon games. It was very cumbersome. You had like 2 inventory slots, and you had to like press like the R button to like swap between each one. And yeah, I just wanted to like kind of modernize it, I guess, and then also just create my own world that I had complete control over. And then just add more like depth, I guess you would say. Like in the old Harvest Moons, like the original Harvest Moon didn't have like mining or combat or anything like that. And then the Harvest Moon that was my favorite, which was Back to Nature for PlayStation. It had mining, but it was so like rudimentary. Like there were no monsters. The mining rooms were like these tiny little like square rooms, and so I just wanted to like expand on all of that. And basically every area of the game, I just wanted to like give it some more depth. I guess that's probably my answer. Yes, right there. Whatever.
Okay, so I have been a fan of your game for a long time now. There is one question I always had.
Okay.
If you could ever go back in time and recode Stardew Valley throughout to never have a single memory of this timeline, basically, what
Okay.
would you do different?
Well, if I couldn't have any memory of this timeline, then I don't think I would do anything different. If I could have my memory, then I probably would have, coded certain things like, for example, the multiplayer. Like I originally wanted to have multiplayer in the game, and I just like didn't release it with multiplayer because it was so annoying to code multiplayer that I was like, I'm just gonna release a single player version and then maybe add multiplayer later. If I knew though how like popular and successful Stardew Valley was gonna be, I would have probably like tried to get that in from the very beginning. I would have done things to make the game more moddable from the beginning. I would have also coded it in a way that would make it easier for myself to like add more content to the game. Like one thing that comes to mind is like the system for making cutscenes, like events in the game, is like so awful. It's like, it's so horrible to work with. I could have easily done it in a way, and like with Haunted Chocolatier, I'm doing it very different, but I could have easily done it in a way that would have saved me like hundreds of hours of time, but I just did it in a very stupid way. Like everything I did with Stardew Valley was very like brute force, amateur way of doing everything, and I was just like, it's fine. I'll just put in 1,000 hours to like do all these events and like whatever, you know. Yeah.
I didn't mean, I was mainly thinking about like how you thought it was gonna blow up, like from the memory type stuff, like just remember, like what went wrong with it type stuff, and figure out what we can do different things to try to make it better or something. That's kind of what I'm at.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, I think it's just what I was saying. Like, I would make it easier for myself to create content for the game. Because, you know, I'm like, I wrote my own engine. So it's like when you're making content and you're like using Unity, you know, there's this set way of doing it with Game Maker. It's like, it's pretty streamlined. When you make your own engine, you kind of have to like figure out your own way of like, you know, you play Stardew Valley, it's like there's all these events, there's these maps, and it's like you gotta be thinking like, how do those actually come to be, you know? It's like, there's like a script that I wrote to make like these cutscenes. It's like my own custom script where you say like, you know, take Willie and have him move 2 tiles south and then pause for 500 milliseconds and then move Willie 2 tiles east, you know? It's like, it's something like that, but just the way I did it was very cumbersome to work with for me. So I could have done that in a lot, like done the work up front to make it easier for me to actually pump out all these cutscenes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
What motivates you to like, you know, make a game? Is starting out, it's a lot, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think for me it was partly a practical concern because I was saying like I was like not getting jobs after college, and I was like, I need to do something with my life. But there's also a large part of it was just that, like, you know, I loved video games. I've always been like a creative person. Like I've always wanted to create things and like share them with people. And I really loved Harvest Moon, which was the game that like kind of inspired Stardew Valley. So I just really wanted to, like, I would always search online for like someone who made like a Harvest Moon like inspired game. Yeah, like I was always looking for that, and no one had ever done anything like that. So I was like, well, I guess I just got to do it myself. And I really loved the game, the genre so much that it just kind of like, it was fun to work on it. Like I would make a little bit of progress and then be like, oh cool, my guy can like run around now. And then it's like you do a little more, it's like my guy has a tool now and he can like hoe the dirt. And like that, each little step like that was just like really exciting to me to like see it all come to life. Okay, in the back.
What were the best parts about making this work by yourself?
Well, the best about making it by myself was probably just like having the complete creative control and freedom. Like I didn't have a boss telling me what to do. So like if I felt on one day like making art, I just made art. If I felt like making music, I made music. If I felt like writing, I wrote. And I didn't ever have to like consult with anyone about like, you know, can I change this or that? If I want to do anything, I just do it. It's completely my own responsibility. In a way, that's also the worst thing about it because you know that nothing is going to get done unless you do it all yourself. Like that's how I felt, you know, it's like, I know that I have to make 100 character events, and it's like, it's not going to get done unless I do literally everything. So it was a huge burden. I mean, it would have been cool, I guess, to have like a partner that I really, you know, like a game development partner that I was like, you know, I can wake up one morning and they would have put in a bunch of stuff, and it's like, whoa, cool, I don't have to do that now. But there wasn't anything like that, so yeah, it was a lot of work, but you know, it was satisfying, and it was cool to be able to do it all myself and have the total control over everything. Yeah, in the back.
What would you say your favorite game is, and how does that like influence or impact you?
Well, my favorite game is probably like Harvest Moon, Back to Nature. And that's kind of why I made Stardew Valley, because I love that game so much, and I just wanted to have more of that. And it's like, if you're familiar with the Harvest Moon series, they kept making games, and like over time, I personally felt like the games got worse and worse. They got like more superficial and just kind of lost the magic of the old game. So I just wanted to like resurrect that old school feel, but kind of bring it into the modern age, I guess. Yeah.
Why did you choose to go by the name ConcernedApe?
That's kind of like, I don't even know. You know, it was a long time ago, and I kind of just picked a random like online handle. You know, sometimes as you do. I mean, I was like, what's that? It wasn't randomly generated. I did pick it, but I don't know if I necessarily had like there's not like some big story to it. I kind of just like, I was like, man, I need a username, and I just like picked this random name, and then it's kind of like, I started making Stardew Valley, and it was like, well, people already kind of know me as this online. I can't change it now, so I'm kind of just stuck with it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hate release dates. It's like, I feel like in the future, I want to just avoid release dates altogether. I know that like the players like to have a release date, but it's so stressful and it's really hard to like commit to something and then like actually make it happen. So yeah, I feel like it's better to just, for me anyway, to just like wait till the thing is done and then just be like, surprise, it's out, you know? I don't know why people need release dates anyway. It's just like, it's gonna be done when it's done, you know? Like, I'm not gonna release it early and have it be like broken and buggy. So like if I create a release date and then I have to like delay it, it just makes people really upset and angry at me, and then it's like a nightmare to deal with. So like I think with Haunted Chocolatier, I'm not gonna even announce a release date until the game is finished. And I'm like, I know it's done. Then I might announce a release date like a week later and be like, okay, just so people can, you know, take the day off work if they want to. All right, let's maybe get, how about in the back? Yeah, you.
Okay. Are you like turning a new page and trying a lot of new things with Haunted Chocolatier, or are you keeping it pretty similar to Stardew Valley?
I'd say it's a bit of both. I mean, like I mentioned before, I think the Stardew Valley fans are kind of expecting something that's at least somewhat similar to Stardew Valley, and it's like that is a big pressure on me. Like I don't want to totally disappoint the fans by doing like, you know, making something completely different, like I don't know, a strategy game or something, or like a racing game, like, you know, or a sports game. I feel like people would be kind of like disappointed if that was the case. They kind of expect a ConcernedApe style game, right? So I definitely want, and to be fair, I mean, those are the kind of games I like too. It's like, I like Harvest Moon. I like games that have kind of like a life sim element to it, I guess. Like I'm playing Persona 5 right now. I don't know, does anyone know that game? Yeah. But I kind of like the like life sim element. But at the same time, I want to make something different just because it's like, I've been working on Stardew Valley for like 13 years now. And I do want to do more than one thing in my life, you know? And I also don't want to just be like a one-trick pony. So it's like, I'm trying to do both, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think really like, a lot of it is more on like the creative side. Like Stardew Valley is like a very like kind of grounded, down-to-earth game in a way. Like you're a farmer, you're working in the dirt. Haunted Chocolatier, it is more imaginative because you are like living in a haunted castle, and like with this ghost element, you know, there's a lot of, you can kind of do anything with it. So I'm kind of excited to be able to do that.
Were there times when you felt that you would not be able to finish Stardew Valley when you passed that space?
I don't think I ever thought like I'm not gonna be able to finish this. I guess my bigger fear was like, this is gonna flop, or like, you know, I've spent 4 years and no one's gonna care. There were definitely more challenging times where I didn't feel like working, and I think, I don't know, I just kind of like powered through it. It's like, I knew that, especially as a solo developer, like this game is not gonna get done unless I do every single like spec of the game. So like, that was a big pressure on myself. Like I have to do this. Like I have to make something of myself. Like otherwise it's like it's over. I've already spent like 4 years of my life. Like if I like don't even finish this game now, it's like I'm so far behind my peers. Like so I had to do it. Yeah, and you know, like I was saying before, like I kind of found like an enjoyment in like each little step. It's you almost like turn it into a game for yourself. It's like you're managing your own like a dopamine system in a way, because it's like, you know, when you play a video game, you're constantly like getting these little rewards, and you're like it keeps you going. Well, you have to kind of like turn your life into that. I think it's to make a game. It's like every little step has to be like your satisfaction for the day, and then you gotta like focus on that. Like make that your video game that you're playing is like developing the game rather than wasting a bunch of time like playing games, which I did sometimes. Obviously, I mean, like I didn't like work 24/7. I did like sometimes waste time and like slack off, but I mean, sometimes you got to, I think, to like rest. All right, about right there. Yeah.
So I've unfortunately never gotten to play the game, but I've always been very interested in like pixel art and really just a lot of yours in particular. And so I was wondering,